Malik had always believed that respect was earned, not given. He grew up in a small town, where people worked hard but rarely got recognized. As a boy, he watched his mother iron clothes late into the night so she could pay school fees, while his father worked 2 jobs at the factory. Malik never had much, but he had a dream to build something that would not only change his life but also create opportunities for people who came from the same struggles as him. Years later, after long nights, countless rejections, and endless hours of hard work, Malik finally became the CEO of his own company. It was not an ordinary company, it was one of the fastest growing tech firms in the city. Investors started noticing him. His name was being whispered in the business world as someone who might change the industry. Still, Malik remained humble. He never forgot the days when he had nothing. One morning, Malik received an invitation. A large investment group wanted to meet him. They had heard about his new project, a groundbreaking idea that could transform communication across the globe. The company was run by the well-known billionaire, Mr. Whitmore. But more than the billionaire himself, people often talked about his daughter, Isabella Whitmore. She was young, beautiful, educated in the best universities, and carried herself like she was above everyone else. People admired her confidence, but others whispered about her arrogance. When Malik arrived at the tall glass building that touched the clouds, he felt a quiet pride. Walking into that room was not just about business, it was about proving to himself that all the sacrifices were worth it. He wore a neat black suit, not too expensive, but pressed and clean. His heart was steady, though he knew eyes would be on him. Inside the boardroom, the long wooden table stretched like a river. At the far end sat Mr. Whitmore with his advisors. Beside him was Isabella, dressed in white with a sharp expression on her face. Her eyes scanned Malik from head to toe, not with curiosity but with silent judgment. "Mr. Malik," Mr. Whitmore said warmly, standing to shake his hand. "We've been hearing great things about your company. Please, have a seat." Malik nodded politely. "Thank you for inviting me. I am honored to be here." As Malik began to present his ideas, the room fell silent. He spoke with calm passion, describing how his technology could connect rural areas, bring affordable communication to villages, and open doors for education. His voice was steady, and his words carried the weight of someone who knew struggle. But halfway through, Isabella interrupted him. She leaned back in her chair, her voice cool. "I'm sorry, but do you really think something like this can compete in the real market? The idea sounds simple. And let's be honest, this is a billion-dollar world. We cannot risk investments on dreams." Her words cut through the air. Some of the advisors shifted uncomfortably, but Malik stayed calm. He had faced worse in his life. With respect, Malik replied, "Every great company started with a dream. What matters is execution and persistence. I believe my team has both." Isabella smirked, her tone carrying a hint of mockery. "Persistence is good, but money talks louder. I've seen many small businesses fail because they didn't understand the scale of real competition. This isn't a school project. This is business." Her father cleared his throat, as if trying to soften the tension. But Malik already understood the situation. She did not see him as an equal. To her, he was just another small-town man with an idea that seemed too ambitious. Still, Malik didn't let his pride speak. He looked directly at her and said gently, "I understand your concern. But sometimes, those who start small have the biggest fire to prove themselves. I am not here to waste anyone's time. I am here because I believe in what this project can bring to people who are often forgotten." For the first time, Isabella's confident smile faded slightly. She didn't respond, only crossed her arms and looked away. The meeting ended with Mr. Whitmore thanking Malik and promising to review the proposal. Malik walked out of the building with mixed feelings. He had spoken his truth, but he could feel Isabella's words echoing in his mind. He knew this was just the beginning, and he would have to face more challenges ahead. Yet, as Malik stepped into the bright sunlight outside, he whispered to himself, "I didn't come this far to turn back now." He had no idea that this meeting, and the arrogance he faced, would one day lead to the most unexpected turn in his life, a turn that would shake the same billionaire family that once doubted him. The days following the meeting at Whitmore Enterprises were not easy for Malik. He returned to his office with a calm face, but deep inside, the sting of Isabella's words still lingered. It wasn't the first time someone had doubted him, and he knew it wouldn't be the last. Yet this felt different. This time, he had stepped into the halls of billionaires, and for a moment, he was treated as if he didn't belong there. Malik sat at his desk that evening, staring at the city lights outside his window. His small office overlooked a busy street, nothing compared to the shining towers of Whitmore Enterprises. But to Malik, this office was sacred. Every piece of furniture, every laptop, every document inside had been earned through sweat, sleepless nights, and sacrifices. His assistant, Daniel, entered quietly with 2 cups of coffee. "You did well today," Daniel said, placing a cup on Malik's table. Malik gave a faint smile. "Did I?" She made it sound like I was a child playing a game. Daniel shook his head. "People like her don't understand what it means to fight from nothing. They see the world from the top. But Malik, you've already proven more than most." Malik sipped his coffee slowly. "I know. But sometimes, their words are heavier than they should be." That night, Malik stayed late, going through presentations and numbers again. He didn't want to give Isabella or anyone else a reason to doubt him. The truth was, his company was running on a thin line. The technology was strong, but funding was fragile. One wrong step and the dream could collapse. The next morning, Malik received a call. It was from Whitmore Enterprises. His heart skipped for a moment. "Mr. Malik," the voice said politely, "Mr. Whitmore would like you to come again tomorrow. He wants to discuss your proposal in more detail." Malik thanked them, but after the call ended, his thoughts went back to Isabella. Would she be there again? Would she try to dismiss him once more? He shook his head. No matter what she said, he had to stay focused. When the day came, Malik arrived early. He walked into the same boardroom, holding his files close. Mr. Whitmore greeted him warmly, but Isabella sat silently this time, her eyes fixed on her tablet. The meeting started with questions from advisors. They wanted to know about budgets, market research, and possible risks. Malik answered with calm confidence, showing every detail he had prepared. Hours passed, and his voice never shook. For every question, he had an answer. At one point, Mr. Whitmore leaned back in his chair and smiled. "You've done your homework, Malik. I must say, I'm impressed." For the first time, Malik saw Isabella raise her eyes. She studied him quietly, as if trying to understand how he could stay so composed. But soon, she spoke again, her tone sharp. "All this sounds fine on paper. But tell me, what makes you think you can handle a venture of this size? People collapse under pressure. This is billions we are talking about, not a charity project." The room grew silent. Everyone looked at Malik, waiting for his response. He looked at Isabella calmly, his voice steady. "I understand your concern. But what makes me confident is not just my plan, it is my life. I know what it means to stand when everything around you is falling. I know pressure because I grew up with it. I know sacrifice because I lived it. If I could survive those days, I can survive this challenge. My strength does not come from wealth, it comes from resilience." His words carried a quiet power, and even the advisors nodded in respect. Isabella said nothing more, but Malik could see her jaw tighten as if she didn't want to admit his point. After the meeting, Mr. Whitmore walked Malik to the door. "You remind me of myself when I was younger," he said. "I started with nothing, too. People laughed at me. Don't let anyone's doubt stop you." Malik bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, sir. That means more than you know." When Malik returned to his office later that day, he felt a strange mix of exhaustion and determination. He didn't know what decision Whitmore Enterprises would make, but he knew one thing: he had spoken his truth again, and he had done it with dignity. That night, he called his mother. She lived in the same small house where he grew up, her voice still soft and caring. "Malik, are you eating well?" she asked first, like she always did. "Yes, Mama," Malik answered with a smile. "I had an important meeting today. It went better than before." "I know you will succeed," his mother said gently. "You always carry our hopes with you. Don't let anyone make you forget where you come from." Her words filled Malik's heart with warmth. For him, this wasn't only about business. It was about proving that someone from the forgotten corners of society could rise without losing himself. As he lay down that night, Malik whispered again to himself, "I didn't come this far to turn back now." What he didn't know was that the true test was yet to come, a test that would challenge not only his patience but his pride, his faith, and his dream itself. Weeks passed after Malik's second meeting with Whitmore Enterprises. His days were filled with preparation, long hours, and careful planning with his small but dedicated team. His company wasn't large, but every employee respected him deeply because they knew his journey. To them, Malik wasn't just a CEO, he was proof that hard work and honesty could still rise in a world where money often ruled. Then, one evening, Malik received another call. This time, it wasn't from Mr. Whitmore's secretary but directly from Isabella. The moment he heard her voice, his chest tightened slightly. "Mr. Malik," she said, her tone clipped and professional. "My father asked me to review your numbers again. Can you come tomorrow at noon? And please, bring your full financial projections. We need to see if this is truly worth our time." Malik agreed politely, though inside he sensed the sharpness behind her words. He spent the night going over every detail again, making sure not a single mistake could be found. He knew Isabella was not looking for his success, she was looking for his failure. The next day, he walked into the Whitmore offices once more. This time, the meeting room was smaller, and only Isabella waited inside. She wore a blue suit, her expression cool and unreadable. "Sit," she said briefly, without much warmth. Malik placed his files on the table and began to explain each detail. He showed graphs, numbers, and projections with calm confidence. His voice remained steady, even though her eyes never softened. After nearly an hour, Isabella leaned back and folded her arms. A faint smile touched her lips, but it wasn't kind. "You really believe all this, don't you?" she said slowly. "I do," Malik replied simply. She shook her head, a quiet laugh escaping her. "Do you know how many people come into this building with dreams like yours? They all think they'll change the world. But most of them fail. Do you know why?" Malik stayed silent, waiting for her answer. "Because they don't understand the difference between hope and reality. Reality doesn't care about your background or your hardships. Reality cares about power, connections, and money. And in that world, Mr. Malik, you are far behind." Her words were sharp, almost mocking, and for the first time, Malik felt anger rise in his chest. But he breathed deeply, forcing himself to remain calm. "With respect," he said softly, "you may see me as behind, but I see myself as someone who has already come far. Reality is not only about money. It is also about people's needs. And people need this project." Isabella tilted her head, studying him as if he were a puzzle she couldn't solve. Then she leaned forward, her voice quiet but biting. "You're ambitious. I'll give you that. But ambition without backing is just noise. Don't mistake my father's kindness for agreement. I advise you not to expect too much from us. For a moment, silence filled the room. Malik gathered his files slowly. He knew her words were meant to break his spirit. But instead of breaking, they made his resolve stronger. I appreciate your honesty, Malik said calmly, standing up. But remember, every great company you admire today started with someone who was told they were not enough. I'll take my chances with reality. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but Malik didn't wait for her reply. He bowed politely and walked out. When he returned to his office later that day, his team rushed to him, asking how the meeting had gone. Malik smiled faintly and simply said, "We still have work to do." He didn't share Isabella's words with them. He didn't want their spirits to fall. That night, however, as he sat alone in his office, her mocking tone returned to him. He had faced doubt all his life, but hearing it in that room, from the daughter of one of the most powerful men in the city, felt heavier. He closed his eyes, remembering his mother's voice, "Don't let anyone make you forget where you come from." The next morning, Malik decided to push harder. He called new investors, reached out to smaller firms, and pitched tirelessly. Many said no, but some listened. Step by step, his dream was moving forward, even if the Whitmores hesitated. Meanwhile, Isabella told her father that she didn't trust Malik's ability to handle such a large venture. "He's passionate, yes," she admitted, "but passion alone won't save a company." Mr. Whitmore only smiled thoughtfully. "Sometimes, passion is the very thing that builds empires," he replied. Isabella frowned, not convinced. Days later, Malik received another invitation. This time, it was for a joint dinner where investors and partners would gather. Mr. Whitmore wanted Malik to present his project to a wider audience. Malik knew this would be his chance to prove himself beyond any doubt. He prepared with every ounce of energy he had. The night before the dinner, he looked at himself in the mirror, wearing the same black suit he had worn for his first meeting. "Tomorrow," he whispered to his reflection, "I will show them that dreams from small places can stand in big rooms." Little did he know, that dinner would not only test his patience but would also bring a moment where Isabella's mockery would cut deeper than ever before. The evening of the dinner arrived with a soft glow of city lights. Malik stood outside the Grand Hotel, his heart steady but his thoughts racing. The building was tall and elegant, with shining glass doors and golden lamps. Expensive cars lined the entrance, and well-dressed men and women stepped inside with confidence. Malik tightened his tie and whispered to himself, "This is just another room, another chance." Inside, the ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers. Round tables were dressed in white cloth, decorated with flowers and shining silverware. Laughter and soft music filled the air. Billionaires, investors, and executives mingled with glasses of sparkling water in their hands. Malik felt the weight of every step as he entered. Though his suit was simple compared to the glittering tuxedos around him, he carried himself with dignity. He reminded himself that he had worked hard for this seat, and no one could take that truth away. Mr. Whitmore spotted him from across the room and walked over with a warm smile. "Malik. I'm glad you could come." "Thank you for inviting me, sir," Malik replied with respect. As they spoke, Malik noticed Isabella nearby, standing among a group of young business heirs. She wore a deep red dress and looked radiant, but her eyes were sharp, filled with the same coldness as before. When she saw Malik, her lips curled into a faint smirk. Later, the guests were asked to take their seats. Malik was placed at a table near the center, close to the Whitmores. The dinner began with speeches, laughter, and light conversations. Malik remained polite, listening and speaking only when addressed. He knew his moment would come later, when he would present his project. Halfway through the meal, Isabella's voice carried across the table. She was speaking to another young investor but loud enough for Malik to hear. "You know," she said with a mocking tone, "these days anyone with a laptop thinks they can change the world. Dreams are beautiful, but they don't always belong in boardrooms." A few people at the table chuckled softly. Malik's hand tightened on his fork, but he kept his head high. Isabella's eyes flicked to him briefly, as if checking whether her words had struck. Then she continued, "It's easy to talk about connecting villages and helping the poor, but in reality, it takes more than good intentions. It takes power. Without that, ideas remain just ideas." The laughter grew a little louder this time, and Malik felt the sting in his chest. He wanted to respond, but he knew this wasn't the moment. He forced a smile and looked down at his plate. Mr. Whitmore noticed the exchange. His face tightened slightly, but he didn't interfere. Perhaps he wanted to see how Malik would handle himself. The evening moved forward, and soon the host announced that a few young leaders would share their visions. Malik's name was called. He stood up, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the stage. The room grew quiet as he began to speak. His voice was calm, steady, filled with quiet strength. He didn't try to impress with fancy words. Instead, he spoke from the heart. He talked about his childhood, about growing up in a place where people struggled to afford even a simple phone call. He explained how his project could bring affordable communication to remote areas, giving children access to education and families the chance to stay connected. As he spoke, the room grew still. Some people leaned forward, listening closely. Even those who had laughed earlier now seemed thoughtful. Malik's words weren't just about numbers, they carried the weight of lived experience. When he finished, there was a brief silence before the audience broke into applause. Some clapped politely, while others clapped with genuine respect. Malik bowed his head slightly and returned to his seat. But as he sat down, Isabella leaned toward him, her voice low but cutting. "That was touching," she whispered. "But touching speeches don't guarantee billions. Investors aren't here for stories, they're here for profit." Malik looked at her calmly, meeting her eyes. "Profit means little if it doesn't create progress," he replied softly. For a moment, she said nothing. Her confident expression faltered slightly, but she quickly turned away, hiding it behind another smirk. The night ended with handshakes and congratulations. Some investors even approached Malik, asking more about his work. He felt a small spark of victory in his heart. Yet, as he stepped out of the grand hall and into the cool night air, he knew Isabella's words would not end there. She had mocked him before, and she would do it again. But Malik also knew something else. Every word she threw at him was shaping him, sharpening his resolve. He whispered once more into the quiet night, "I didn't come this far to turn back now." Little did he know, the next chapter would not just test his patience but would shake the very foundation of the partnership being built. The days after the dinner felt like a storm that refused to pass. Malik's speech had touched many in the room, and several investors had shown interest. Some even sent messages the next day, asking for more details about his project. For Malik, this was a small victory. He had walked into the dinner mocked and doubted, but he had walked out with new hope. Yet behind the closed doors of Whitmore Enterprises, a different conversation was taking place. Mr. Whitmore sat in his office, looking over Malik's proposal once more. "There's potential here," he said quietly. "If this works, it could open new markets no one has touched before." Isabella sat across from him, her arms folded tightly. "Father, it's risky. You saw the way he spoke last night." Yes, it was emotional, yes, people clapped. But emotion doesn't protect investments. I don't trust him with billions. Mr. Whitmore sighed. "Sometimes, Isabella, you judge too quickly. Strength isn't always shown in polished numbers. Sometimes, strength is shown in the way someone refuses to give up." But Isabella shook her head. Or it's just stubbornness dressed as strength. You've built this empire carefully. Don't let sympathy cloud your decisions. Her father looked at her with calm eyes. Sympathy? No. Respect, yes. That man has earned mine. Isabella turned away, frustration in her chest. For the first time, she felt her father leaning towards someone she couldn't understand, someone she didn't want to respect. Meanwhile, Malik worked tirelessly in his small office. His team was excited about the new attention the project had gained, but Malik carried the weight of knowing Isabella was still against him. He could almost feel her resistance in every step forward. One afternoon, Daniel entered Malik's office with a worried look. I overheard something, he said carefully. One of the advisors at Whitmore Enterprises told a contact of mine that Isabella is trying to push other investors away from us. She's saying the project is too risky. Malik sat back, silent for a long moment. He wasn't surprised. But hearing it confirmed was like feeling a knife twist. Let her, Malik said finally, his voice calm but heavy. If she wants to test my resolve, she will see it won't break. That night, Malik stayed at the office long after everyone else had gone home. The glow of his computer lit his face as he revised every presentation, every number, making them stronger. He thought of his mother ironing clothes in their small living room, of his father walking home from the factory with tired steps. They had faced harder storms than this. How could he give up now? A week later, Malik was invited again to Whitmore Enterprises. This time, the meeting was larger. Dozens of investors filled the room, with Isabella seated near the center. Malik stood at the front, explaining his vision with the same calm fire in his voice. He spoke of markets ignored, of people forgotten, of futures that could be transformed. The investors listened, nodding, asking questions. But halfway through, Isabella raised her hand. Her tone was polite but her words carried the same coldness. Mr. Malik, she said, your presentation is moving, yes. But let us be practical. Investors here are not charities. We need assurance, not speeches. What guarantee can you give us that this venture will not collapse within a year? The room grew quiet. Eyes turned to Malik. He breathed slowly, his gaze steady. Guarantees in business do not exist, he said calmly. What I can give you is not empty promises but proof of resilience. Every challenge this company has faced, we overcame. Every time we were told no, we built another way forward. I cannot promise a life without storms, but I can promise that I will not let the ship sink while I am its captain. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then, slowly, some of the investors clapped. Not loudly, not cheerfully, but with respect. Malik's words had reached them. Isabella, however, leaned back with a faint smirk, as if unimpressed. After the meeting, Malik walked out into the hallway, his steps heavy but proud. He had faced her again, and again he had not broken. Later that night, in the Whitmore household, Isabella spoke with her father once more. Why can't you see it? He's not ready. He's trying to sound strong, but strength doesn't pay losses. If you invest, father, you'll regret it. Mr. Whitmore looked at her quietly. Maybe, he said slowly, but sometimes the biggest regrets come from not giving someone a chance. Isabella frowned, feeling a strange unease she couldn't explain. Back in his office, Malik sat alone under the dim light, his head resting in his hands. For the first time, doubt crept into his heart. What if Isabella was right? What if the weight was too much? But then, he remembered the applause. He remembered the investors' eyes when they listened. He remembered his mother's words. Lifting his head, he whispered to himself, I didn't come this far to turn back now. He didn't know it yet, but the cracks in the partnership were widening and soon, Those cracks would either break his dream completely or open the path to something far greater than he had imagined. The weeks dragged on, and tension grew heavier with each passing day. Malik's project had gained attention, but the partnership with Whitmore Enterprises remained uncertain. Investors were watching closely, some excited, others doubtful. Malik carried himself with calm dignity, but inside, the weight of uncertainty pressed down on him. One morning, Malik received a call from Mr. Whitmore himself. "Malik," the older man said warmly, "come by this afternoon. I want us to finalize the terms of the joint venture." Malik's heart lifted. This was the moment he had been working toward for years. He thanked Mr. Whitmore and immediately called Daniel to prepare all the documents. When he arrived at the towering Whitmore building later that day, Malik walked with quiet confidence. The receptionist smiled at him, and even some of the staff greeted him with respect. His name was beginning to carry weight. Inside the grand boardroom, Mr. Whitmore sat with a few senior advisors. Isabella was there too, her expression unreadable. Malik greeted them politely and laid his files on the table. Mr. Whitmore began the meeting. "We've gone through your proposal carefully, Malik. My advisors see strong potential. I believe this partnership could benefit not only us but millions of people who are waiting for better access to communication." Malik bowed his head slightly. "Thank you, sir. That is exactly what we hope to achieve." But before the papers could be signed, Isabella leaned forward. Her eyes were sharp, and her voice carried a chill. "Father, I can't agree with this," she said firmly. "This entire plan is built on faith, not certainty. You're about to put billions into a man who barely has the infrastructure to handle it. This is reckless." The room grew silent. Malik felt every eye turn to Isabella. Mr. Whitmore frowned. "Isabella, we've been over this. I trust Malik's vision." But Isabella wasn't finished. She looked directly at Malik now, her words cutting like glass. "You speak well, Malik. You move people with your stories. But stories don't run companies. Numbers do. I believe you are not ready for this scale, and I won't support wasting resources on an experiment." The air was heavy. Malik sat quietly, his hands folded on the table. He had been mocked before, but this moment carried more weight because it was in front of those who were about to make a final decision. For a long moment, he said nothing. But then he lifted his head, his voice calm but firm. "With respect, Miss Whitmore, this is not an experiment. This is a step forward for people who have been ignored. I may not have billions behind me, but I have something stronger: the drive to build, the patience to endure, and the will to finish what I start. If that is not enough for you, then perhaps this partnership was never meant to be." The room went still. Some of the advisors looked shocked by his boldness. Mr. Whitmore studied Malik with quiet admiration. But Isabella leaned back, her arms crossed, a faint smile on her lips as if she believed she had won. The meeting ended without signatures. Malik walked out of the building, his chest heavy but his head still high. He knew he had spoken his truth, even if it cost him everything. That evening, he sat in his small office, staring at the city lights. His team was anxious, asking what had happened. Malik told them gently, "The decision is not final yet. But no matter what happens, our work continues." Later that night, his phone buzzed. It was an email from one of the investors who had attended his earlier presentations. The message was short but powerful: "We believe in your vision. If Whitmore Enterprises does not support you, we are ready to discuss alternative arrangements." Malik's heart lifted. Even as Isabella tried to close doors, new ones were opening. Meanwhile, in the Whitmore household, Mr. Whitmore sat quietly in his study. Isabella entered, her arms still folded. "You saw it, father. He's not ready. You can't risk everything on him." Mr. Whitmore looked at her carefully. You may be right about the risks, Isabella. But you are wrong about the man. There is something in him you refuse to see, a strength money cannot buy. But Isabella shook her head. Strength won't save billions if he fails. Mr. Whitmore sighed deeply. Perhaps. But if you keep pushing against him, Isabella, you may one day regret it. Not because of the money, but because of the person you misjudged. She turned away, unwilling to accept his words. But deep inside, for the first time, a flicker of doubt touched her heart. Back in his small office, Malik closed his laptop and whispered to himself once more, I didn't come this far to turn back now. He didn't yet know what was coming, but the storm was about to break, and when it did, it would change everything for him, for Isabella, and for the empire she thought could never fall. Days passed after Malik's final meeting with Whitmore Enterprises. The tension had not eased. Isabella's shadow of doubt still hovered over every conversation, every investor decision. Malik continued to work tirelessly, preparing for every eventuality. He was calm on the outside, but inside, he felt the pressure of years of struggle and countless sacrifices. Then came a phone call that would change everything. Malik's heart skipped as he answered. Mr. Malik, said the voice on the other end, steady and professional, we've reviewed your proposals carefully. We are ready to move forward with your project as a joint venture, under terms you proposed. Congratulations. Malik's hands trembled slightly, but he kept his composure. Thank you. I promise you will not regret this. The news spread quickly. Malik's team was overjoyed, celebrating quietly in their small office. For them, this was more than a financial victory, it was the validation of years of hard work, sleepless nights, and unwavering belief. Meanwhile, at Whitmore Enterprises, Isabella learned of the decision. Mr. Whitmore had signed the partnership papers without consulting her further. Her eyes widened as she read the official notification. The billion-dollar venture was officially in Malik's hands. She stormed into her father's study, anger and disbelief flashing in her expression. Father! How could you? I told you he wasn't ready. He can't handle billions. This is reckless. Mr. Whitmore looked at her calmly. Isabella, he is ready. You only see what you want, arrogance, perhaps, or youth. But Malik has something neither money nor connections can buy, integrity and resilience. Isabella's frustration was visible, but a quiet part of her mind couldn't deny it. She had underestimated him. She had mocked him, dismissed him, and yet here he was entrusted with billions and the chance to make his vision a reality. The first official meeting under the new joint venture took place in Malik's office. Representatives from Whitmore Enterprises arrived, along with key investors. Malik stood at the front, explaining every detail of the project with clarity, precision, and passion. His calm authority filled the room. For the first time, Isabella watched silently from a corner, her usual smug expression replaced by something she didn't expect, respect. Every word Malik spoke, every decision he outlined, showed not just preparation but vision, courage, and wisdom. After the meeting, Malik stayed behind to review the final documents. Isabella approached him hesitantly, her eyes downcast. Mr. Malik, she began, her voice quiet. I didn't expect this. You've proven me wrong. Malik looked at her, calm but kind. I hope you understand now that dismissing someone because of who they are or where they come from can lead to mistakes. Respect is earned, yes, but it is also mutual. I have always respected you and your family, even when I felt the opposite wasn't true. Isabella looked away, feeling a strange mix of humility and regret. I misjudged you. I let arrogance blind me. I see now how wrong I was. Malik smiled gently. It's never too late to learn. What matters is what we do moving forward. That day, the joint venture was officially launched. Malik's company and Whitmore Enterprises worked together, combining resources and expertise. Malik's team implemented the technology to bring affordable communication to rural areas, schools, and small towns. Families who had never been able to connect with loved ones suddenly had access. Children could attend online classes, and small businesses could grow. News of the venture spread rapidly, earning Malik recognition not just as a CEO but as a visionary who used power responsibly. He didn't boast, didn't flaunt success. He simply worked, letting results speak louder than words. Meanwhile, Isabella observed quietly. The lessons she had learned were profound. She saw that true strength was not about privilege, beauty, or wealth. True strength came from persistence, integrity, and the courage to face doubt and still move forward. One evening, Malik walked home under the soft glow of the streetlights. The city felt alive, but this time, it felt different. He had achieved more than a business victory. He had proven to himself and to the world that respect, perseverance, and vision could overcome mockery, doubt, and prejudice. At home, he called his mother, who had always been his guiding light. "Mama," he said softly, "we did it. The project is officially underway. People will benefit. Your sacrifices, all those years, they weren't in vain." Her voice trembled with emotion. "Malik, my son, you've made us proud. Not just for the success, but for the man you've become. You faced disrespect, doubt, and challenges, and you never lost your heart." Malik smiled, tears threatening to fall. "I didn't come this far to turn back now. And I never will." Weeks later, Isabella watched as the project succeeded beyond expectations. She had tried to mock him, to dismiss him, but Malik had turned every doubt into a step toward triumph. And in doing so, he had not only achieved a billion-dollar venture but had earned respect, inspired countless others, and changed lives in ways she could never have imagined. For Malik, the journey was far from over. But he had learned that no matter how high someone's walls were, no matter how harsh their words, determination, integrity, and perseverance could overcome anything. And in the end, that was the real victory.